Welcome to the inaugural episode of the Behind the Screen podcast. That sounds nice. I like that. How does that fit? How does that feel?
It feels good. I mean, yeah.
I'm Dave Huff.
And I'm Ryan George.
Haven't you always wanted to do that like that? Like that? Now we're hosts.
It's official now.
Today we're talking about method acting. We're going to talk about the how and the why. What are some of the best examples? What are some of the worst examples? And how is it viewed by the public overall? Is it just a real ego trip? Or is it a glorified marketing tool? An overused expression of manliness?
Ooh.
These are all questions we want to answer today because people are starting to have enough.
People are upset, Dave.
Jared Leto is still being ridiculed about this.
He needs to be stopped.
He needs to be stopped, but also the ridicule should continue.
Well, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
We're going to dive into all of these things and answer these questions in the podcast. But first, let's kick things off with an interview between J-Lo and Robert Pattinson, of all people.
Who now?
Yeah, I know. But trust me, we need this.
All right. You say so.
So I always say about people who do method acting, you only ever see people doing the method when they're playing an actor.
That's funny.
They literally don't.
You're funny. You're a funny person.
I'm not sure about ending it on, you're funny.
J-Lo appreciates Robert Pattinson.
I'm really curious as to why this is the dynamic. Like, just as an aside, it has nothing to do with this podcast whatsoever. Why is J-Lo conducting this interview with Robert Pattinson? It's a very weird dynamic.
It's one of those actors interviewing actors things.
Oh, like I'm an actor.
Yeah.
So like I know what you're talking about.
Exactly.
Now roll the clip of you're funny. You're very funny. Twice in a row.
Funny. Yeah.
I think I need to know it ends as well. I
Right.
need to know that there's a cut coming, and then I feel safer. If it just feels like
You can't get out.
you can't get out, then that's when you go crazy.
But that's an interesting take, is like the difference of the actors that need to shed that skin and can't carry it on into their regular lives. It's almost like a lot of people think of work this way in whatever career you're in life. Like, I need to go home at the end of the day and rid myself of whatever it is that I'm doing so that I can start fresh the next day. I can't bring my work home with me.
Yeah.
Whereas method acting is the exact opposite by definition. It is meant to be the full immersion into this role.
Yeah, you're kind of supposed to live the life of the character so that you can access it quickly, I guess. But like he says, that can definitely be used as an excuse to just be a jerk, and kind of like how you play a video game to like Grand Theft Auto, where you're like, you could steal a car and get away with it because you're playing a game. It's kind of like that. Like, I have permission to be a jerk because I am method, and
to run people over with cars and beat them up with baseball bats. If it's okay in
my
this
character
environment
does that.
Yeah.
Man, it seems like definitely self-important in the way he describes it. People just feeling like they need to, like, they're not doing it properly.
Yeah.
Unless they're living that life of the character. It's cool to hear that he didn't do that on that move on The Lighthouse, because you could see that that's the kind of role where somebody would be like, ooh, I get to act insane all the time.
Let me run with this. Let me have fun with this.
Yeah, I'm just going to yell at people on the street, and that's fine.
But it's true. You do only hear about it when they're actors. I mean,
because it's not interesting to hear about someone being nice.
just a nice guy.
Unless it's Tom Hanks, then everyone's like, oh, that's nice.
Oh my God, Mr. Rogers. He like really is Mr. Rogers.
Yeah, it's only the outrageous asshole stories that make interesting titles.
So let's talk about outrageous asshole stories, because I think this is the one that kicks off this entire podcast, and it is really what inspired us to explore this topic. And it's Jared Leto's portrayal of the Joker, because not only is his portrayal objectively bad.
What?
Bring the car around. We're going for a drive.
It is also subjectively bad.
There you go. Didn't cover all angles of bad.
No, I just wanted to make sure that it's on every single level. It is bad.
Yeah, right.
Everything from the way he just looked in the role to how he carried himself on film, and to how he lived his life off camera, off screen, interacting with his castmates and interacting with the crew of the film. The stories are ridiculous. We've heard them all.
Jared, he went full Joker, and the rule generally is never go full Joker.
Mailing Margot Robbie a dead rat. Was it a dead rat or was it a live rat?
I've heard different accounts, but I think it was a live rat. I've heard pet rat. I've heard dead rat. I've heard...
I'm curious, which rat are you...
Which is worse?
Which are you more mad about if you get it in the mail?
Oh, man. I'm equally mad about... Well,
equally?
I'm glad... If I get a live rat, I'm glad that a rat didn't die. But then I'm like, well, what do I do with this rat now?
Oh, my God, Ryan, that's so nice of you.
Well,
like,
I mean...
You care about the rat.
Of course.
I wasn't thinking about the rat in this situation.
Well, if it's a dead rat, then I'm like, okay, yeah, this sucks.
And maybe I also have the plague now.
Yeah, that's it. That's how most plagues start, with method actors sending bad gifts.
So he mailed rats. He gifted them used condoms.
Yeah, and there was something about a dead pig.
Yep.
All these outlandish things that
beg the question, why? Why did he do this? Because it didn't translate into a better film. When you really... boil it down, Suicide Squad wasn't a particularly good film, but it is accentuated by the fact that he was a particularly bad Joker.
He's barely in it, but when he is, it's like, oh.
Stand out bad, which is hard to do.
It is. And maybe that was the point.
It seems like part of it is that it's I mentioned marketing earlier. It seems like part of it is to sell more tickets, to be able to include it in the trailers, to be able to say that Jared Leto went this extra mile, so you should come and see this. And I think that idea is backed up by some of the numbers. And I'm not a numbers guy, but let me hit you with some numbers. The budget for the film was $175 million. The marketing budget was $150 million. And you said something earlier while we were just, talking this through about how the trailers were the best part of that film.
Yeah, absolutely. That Bohemian Rhapsody trailer that, people were excited. I mean, all the money that it made, I think, was thanks to those really well edited trailers. But then it turns out they hired those same people to cut the whole movie, and that didn't translate well to an hour and a half.
There is something to be said, though, about like trailer editing versus film editing. They are very different types of editing, and a film editor is not necessarily the right person to edit a trailer.
Absolutely.
But on the exact flip side, the person who edits a trailer should probably not be editing your entire film.
Absolutely.
All due respect to the trailer editors out there.
Yeah. They're two very different skill sets. That's not to say that someone could never do it, but I mean, clearly in this case, that movie was like, in theaters, it was designed for you to have a pause button and read things on the screen. And it's like, okay, I guess I got to buy this on DVD now.
And it made $746 million gross, which that's a nice number of dollars.
Yeah.
And so it worked. It clearly worked. It brought people out there to see this outlandish Jared Leto.
Yeah.
This story of these anti-villains and villains. They're mostly anti-villains, or they're mostly villains?
I don't know what you'd call them. Anti-hero villain heroes.
Anti-heroes, not anti-villains. Sorry, you're right. Anti-hero.
What is an anti-villain?
What is an anti-villain?
That's when your aunt drinks a little too much. Goes a little wild.
She's never allowed to come back to Thanksgiving ever again.
Get out of here, anti-villain.
Yeah, and I guess that comes to the next point. Like, I want to tee up another clip here. Jared Leto doesn't even know what method acting is.
Well, how did you put it? Going method? Is that what you said?
That's what I've...
Going method. No,
again, I'm not a good actor, so I don't know the terms.
No, and it's an interesting way to put it.
Stanislavski.
Going method is an interesting way to put it, because you kind of do go there. But it's really just a way to stay incredibly focused and committed and concentrated. It's a way to kind of shut everything else out and to prioritize what's important. That's really another way to describe going method. You don't have to sit around and really believe that you're this other person.
Yeah.
Don't you just kind of want to punch him in the face?
I think
No, you have to say yes.
Oh, yes.
You want to punch him in the face.
No, I can respect wanting to stay focused,
of course,
and all that. I just think that, I think there's some confusion about the difference between research and method, and certain things are necessary for every part. I think researching is very important, but it seems like maybe we can go back to like what method acting like originated as, like what is method acting, and if an Oscar-winning actor like Jared Leto can't even describe what it is, then what is it supposed to be? How did it start? How did we get here?
We have a problem. And I find one other thing that's interesting about what he said was, he's like, I don't even have to believe that I am this person.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't help but feel like method acting or traditional acting, yeah, you are. That's the job. You have to believe you're this person and immerse yourself in that role, regardless of what it takes to get there. And he doesn't even know really what it takes to get there, or doesn't even understand how something like the term method acting would play into that process. That's your job. That's what you're brought there to do, to be this person for this set amount of time.
Yeah.
And if you need more than that to get into the character, then that's okay. That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But at what point does it start becoming problematic? Let's do one more Jared Leto.
Okay.
Don't forget the beats,
Who did you send it?
the used condoms.
You're not.
Yeah. I mean, it was.
Step back, friend. You can't just say use condoms and we're just gonna like forget.
I know it's a family show, but we can.
Don't worry.
We can educate people here. At least they were used.
So, yeah, I mean,
Do you see how proud he is of himself?
in the last clip, I was definitely like, okay, no, I could respect that. But that clip was from 2014 before he did any of that. And now that Joker interview just now was painful to listen to a little bit. That was very...
It's from the radio show at the beginning where he's like, I don't even know what it is. I want people to like my character. I want people to believe my character. I don't even need to believe my character. To a second later, don't forget about these beats.
Yeah, just, I mean, creating an environment of unpredictability.
And pure toxicity.
That's workplace harassment. That is... Can you imagine? This is 2016, and some things have happened in Hollywood since then.
Just a couple.
Can you imagine if Jared Leto today in 2020 sent used condoms to Margot Robbie on set? That would be like he would be blacklisted.
You would hope so.
You would hope so. And yet this is proud. This is part of the...
He was really proud of himself. Like almost like a, ha ha, got him.
Got him.
And I can't help but feel like that's the wrong way to treat your co-stars.
I can't help but feel that way.
So this brings up another interesting story from one of our producers, Amelia, who has been researching this topic for a couple of weeks now. And something that we thought about is how this does affect your co-stars. How this also, it's trickling down in the industry to people who are just getting their start as actors, people who are aspiring actors or just breaking out onto the scene, who feel that the only way to be a successful actor is to go the extra mile, and the effect that can have on the co-stars and the other people involved in the production. This is Amelia.
He didn't want to be weird anymore.
It can also make it really hard for other actors to do their jobs.
Are you like rebelling right now?
Hi, I'm Amelia. I'm one of the producers of this podcast, and I am an actor. In my job, I've had experiences with other actors trying to go method, and honestly, it can just disrupt the entire thing if they don't know what they're doing. It's totally true that if somebody is doing it properly, like Daniel Day-Lewis style, not making everybody get involved in their process, it's fine, it's no big deal. But when somebody just doesn't actually have any idea of what the method is, and they just show up and do their own thing, it causes problems. So I was working on a movie one time, and this guy showed up on set, and we all realized after a while that he wasn't being himself. He was being his character. Like, we all thought that he was telling us stories about his own life and about his own experiences and like introducing himself as you do to another human being, and then we realized that he wasn't, that he had been in character for the whole time. And honestly, that part wasn't really even a big deal. But when we started shooting, like when we started really getting into the meat of the scenes, he just went off. He wouldn't say any of his lines as written. He wouldn't let us finish our lines. He would go on these like long, like 8 to 12 minute long monologues of this backstory that he created that made no sense. There was a fight scene later on in the movie, and he almost broke his hand punching a cement wall to just like get his, like, to get pumped up. And then it was doubly as scary for the other actor who was then going to have to do a fight with this person who just was behaving completely unpredictably. Mostly, like, the biggest effect it had on all of us was just that nobody in a scene with him could ever relax. We never knew when to speak. We never knew when he was going to go. It took us out of all of our performances so much because this guy was so intent on doing this thing that he had like this idealized version of what acting is. Look, he didn't mail us any like used prophylactics, or he didn't make the entire shoot about himself. He wasn't exactly Jared Leto, but it wasn't the greatest experience. And by no means am I the only person who has ever dealt with this kind of thing.
So this is a problem. We can agree.
We can agree, and I think that this experience kind of captures what the problem seems to be with modern method acting, is that it's seen as being necessary to be a good actor, but the actors kind of just make everything about themselves, and that's insane. Like completely, there are so many people working on a film set that for you to show up and make it all about yourself and your role is so egocentric and so disruptive and even dangerous. In this case, if he was ignoring the fight choreography,
people can get hurt.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a reason that that's rehearsed, and it's because you don't want to accidentally get punched in the face. So yeah, that's insane.
Let's do a little bit of a history lesson. I feel that this is the time. I think we need to know what it is and where it comes from.
Yeah, to understand how we got to the point where this is happening.
Yeah,
we should see where method acting started.
If we're going to know where we're going, we have to know where we've been.
That's true.
I don't know who that guy was.
I don't know.
He's a new character I'm working on. So what is it? What is method acting? I mean, I don't know. I don't even know if anybody knows.
Nobody knows.
Nobody knows.
It's this big conspiracy. Everyone's like, oh, method acting. But if you ask people to define it or what it actually is, like, what is method? I doubt that anyone could say. Even me, I don't feel confident giving like the best definition of it without some papers in front of me.
Right. So the overall idea of it is an actor going to these extreme lengths to get into character. So losing a ton of weight is part of it, learning some obscure skill, or in the case of Shia LaBeouf, one time ripping out your own tooth. And then in the case of our good friend Jared Leto, mailing disgusting things to your co-stars.
He mailed Shia LaBeouf's tooth to his co-stars. Did you know that? He's playing a dentist. And
he's playing a dentist in an upcoming film, so he's just practicing ripping his own teeth out of his head. Let's talk about where it came from. There was a Russian man named Konstantin Stanislavski. He was the guy. He came up with what he called his naturalistic performance, which was pretty much the opposite of acting at that time. You know, 1800s. Put yourself in the 1800s in Russia. Ryan, I need you to...
I'm there.
You're there?
I'm there.
You're feeling it?
I'm trying to think if I can do a Russian accent.
Don't. I think it's going to go to a place.
I feel like I'm going to offend somebody somewhere.
Absolutely.
I'll just be like, hey, I'm Russian. Like, not even close.
Not even close. So he came up with this idea of naturalistic performance, which was the opposite of what was considered acting at the time.
What was acting at the time?
Acting at
stage.
It was these more the grand physical gestures. What people would consider today to be melodrama,
like fainting, you put your hand on your
head and you fall backwards.
Oh my!
Oh, dearie me!
But with a Russian accent.
With a Russian accent. Exactly. Whereas the naturalism was all about being like completely believable. He was all about the idea that the best way for an actor to find that or get into that role in a completely believable way was to draw on your own personal experiences, to dig deep into the closet of terrible experiences that you had as a child growing up in 1800s Russia. And
were that wasn't good times to grow up?
I mean, I don't have the best frame of reference, but I'm going to guess 1800s anywhere was a pretty bad time to grow up.
I feel like that's a good guess.
You know, we have it pretty good now.
Yeah.
And it wasn't good then.
People who are like, I was born in the wrong decade, never say, I wish I was born in the 1800s.
Exactly. So pulling from all those wonderful gems of their backstories,
of childhood terror,
childhood trauma and terror, in order to harness the trauma and spin it into a believable emotional performance. That was his jam. The common example was, like if somebody wanted to play a murderer, the chances were good that the actor had not actually murdered someone.
Good.
I think so. But Stanislavski's method wanted you to recall the time in your life where you felt pure rage or like any other emotion that would push you to the extreme and relive it during that scene.
Like someone cuts you off in traffic, horse traffic, because it's the 1800s.
Horse traffic. Yep. It's getting sideswiped by a buggy.
Access that rage.
What do you like? You don't get to slam on the horn.
No, you gotta
whip your horse.
Just like a rage whinny.
I hope that your horse neighs loud enough at the other buggy to get your point across. I suppose you would just stand up on the buggy and shake an angry fist. Travel. What were we even saying? Yeah, so the rage. Yeah,
rage.
That's how you get the rage, and then putting that into your role. Then in the 1930s came a man named Lee Strasberg. Mm-hmm. Check this out.
Well, I always have a secret feeling that I'm really a fake or something, or phony. Or you know how people feel about themselves. They have something secret they feel about themselves. I always feel that. I know my teacher says, why do you feel that about yourself? And then he started to say, but you're a human being. I said, yes, I am. I said, but I feel like I have to be more. He says, no. He says, you start with yourself, Lee Strasberg.
So this is a clip of Marilyn Monroe talking about Lee Strasberg and his style of acting the style of acting that he taught. So Lee Strasberg, who studied with Stanislavski, he brought the method to America, essentially. He created the Actors Studio, which was a place that actors learned how to be actors.
That's a good name, then.
I think it's a really good name.
They nailed it.
He had some very famous students. James Dean, Jack Nicholson, Al Pacino, Philip Seymour Hoffman, Jane Fonda. 400 more of the most critically acclaimed actors out there are on that Lee Strasberg's list.
So in terms of influential people,
he's not a lightweight.
He's not a lightweight.
He definitely had maybe the biggest impact that we could, the biggest measurable impact
on American cinema,
yeah,
acting and all that jazz. Not jazz.
No jazz.
Just
Zero
acting.
jazz. No jazz. And so that's interesting. What Marilyn says about his style was about just being a person, just being the person that you are.
Yeah.
And he took what Stanislavski taught and pushed it a step further. So it's this emotional memory technique. The idea that your rage while sitting on the back of a horse being pissed off that you were just cut off wasn't enough to fully inhabit a character.
Right.
So, well, I mean, especially if you were nothing like that person in real life.
So he wanted like a real murder.
Go full method. Take that knife out, find your target, and understand what it's like to take a life. Okay, there's one more name that's going to enter the ring right now. Stella Adler.
And his name is John Cena. Okay. You always got to expect John Cena.
That's true. You can never be sure, man. No, Stella Adler, a bit of definitely not the same impact as John Cena. So Stella studied under Stanislavski and Strasberg.
Oh, both?
Yeah. She's like the Socrates of,
I don't know.
I'm sorry. So she felt that the two had taken things a little too far on the whole traumatic experience front. She felt like you should just be able to use your imagination. Now, the way I said that is probably simplifying her whole thought process and really dumbing it down. But the idea was that you should be able to immerse yourself through your own imagination rather than having to drag out all these terrible, scarring, traumatic experiences.
Right.
Some of her disciples include Marlon Brando.
Good one.
You know this name. Robert De Niro. Also a good one.
The guy from The Joker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty much all he's known for.
Rocky and Bullwinkle.
Rocky and Bullwinkle, the classic boxing cartoon. Benicio del Toro.
He's good too.
He's a great actor. So she definitely did it right as well, or had her own take was appropriate as well, especially considering De Niro is probably considered one of the best actors of our time. And before that, Marlon Brando is like maybe the best of all time in the history of movies.
Yeah.
So that's where it came from. Now, so now it's sort of evolved into like this So the idea is that people like Marilyn Monroe, Marlon Brando, James Dean, they were influenced by, or they repurposed their own suffering to learn from it and turn it into an art. Whereas people like Christian Bale and Leonardo DiCaprio are just trying to fit into the molds of other characters, regardless of what the cost is. So the so-called method actors are intentionally creating their own suffering for themselves. And that's to the point that we were talking about before about how far is too far. When you are suffering from it and then your colleagues are suffering from it as well, now you're no longer just fitting a mold. You're spilling outside of that mold in all directions.
They're really becoming the character rather than drawing upon their past experience to inform how they play the character in a way.
Yeah.
Does that sound?
Yeah.
Think it makes sense?
Yeah. This time, this is from one of our producers, Jean Bernard. He's an actor, and he's spent time exploring method acting and practicing it himself. Take it away, Jean.
This is my life's work.
Dense bones. No candy.
Hello, my name is Jean Bernard. I am an actor, and I have been in more than 125 short films, and I've led 2 feature films. I was first introduced to method acting through the books and works of Konstantin Stanislavski, and it was really heavily rooted in playing around in your life, in your past, going deep within yourself in order to dig out previous emotionally traumatic experiences in order to mirror the emotions that your character would be going through. I tried it for a long time. I did believe for many years that the way to great acting was through the display of great emotions. I was wrong. I was wrong because withdrawing inside of yourself within a scene is the opposite of presence. If I'm checking out of a reality that I'm supposed to be in order to access a memory of when somebody dear to me died or when my heart was broken, I'm not present in the moment with that other character in the actual story that's taking place in real time. It's probably because that actor had the heart of the character and not necessarily the body of the character. So that's something to keep in mind. It's old-fashioned, it doesn't work, it never really worked in the first place. It was just a necessary step that actors needed to take in order to get to where they are today. And I think that in the near future and in the present, great actors have to trust in their imagination and intuition.
Okay, so now that we have a rough idea of exactly what method acting is, I want us to look at some modern examples. So Ryan Gosling and Michelle Williams for Blue Valentine, they lived with their fake daughter. They lived with her. They had fake Christmas and fought all day before taking their fake daughter to the family fun park.
I'm curious, is this
hang on, there's a really important detail.
Oh.
This is before they shot the second part of the movie when they're supposed to portray a dysfunctional family. So like they shot half the movie, realized they didn't have what it takes to portray a dysfunctional family. So they brought their co-star fake daughter home, lived with her, had fake fights in front of her.
So the actual... Okay, because I was confused by fake daughter. I was picturing like a Victorian era doll that they carried around to a theme park, which is also strange. But so you're saying they imposed this on a young actress? They brought her around and yelled at each other in front of her?
Yeah, now that I'm saying it, that sounds really bad and that people should have gone to jail for this.
I mean, yeah, you kind of hope it's the Victorian doll in this case.
Okay, hang on. Is it?
There's no way that that's okay to do.
Right? Yeah, that's real. Okay, so the director forced them to live together, gave them a very small budget to live off of, forced them to have fights.
In front of a young actress.
A child, so that they would hate each other and actually be in a dysfunctional family.
Okay. Let's heal this dog. 1, 2, 3.
So
this is the director forcing them to do insane method acting in order to get what he thinks would be a real performance.
That's a very interesting angle to this that I hadn't thought about previously. Like, what if the actors don't even want to do this? This is imposed upon them by the director.
That's very extreme.
Extreme is one way to put it. It sounds illegal. You should not be allowed to do that. Like,
that's
where
true.
was this kid's mom? So this is an example of too far, where this did spill into the lives of the rest of the cast and the crew. And ultimately, like, who knows how this child was affected by this entire ordeal.
Yeah, I don't care how authentic the scene looked. That's not worth doing that.
And it's almost worse that it is authentic because now this kid the lines are completely blurred between reality and what is like a child actor doesn't know what the performance is. They think this is what life is.
Yeah.
They're too young to know the difference. One of my favorites. Just the name's one of my favorites because I feel like this is a ridiculous human being. Christian Bale.
Christian Bale.
Lost 60 pounds for The Machinist, and then he gained it right back and then some for Batman Begins. I mean, I don't know if you remember. He was gigantic in Batman Begins. He was gigantic in all the Batmen.
Yeah.
Batman or Batmans?
Batmans.
But lost 60 pounds for The Machinist. This is probably one of the most iconic images of like a method actor going through a weight transformation for a role.
Unrecognizable.
How he lived through that is without major health implications is insane to me. All of it came from a misunderstanding. Doesn't that suck?
That's a big whoopsie.
Yeah, just a big old whoopsie. Apparently, the writer put down his own weight in the character description without thinking that it was a requirement for the actor to weigh the same thing. And so then when Christian Bale saw it, he just dropped all that weight.
He was just like, let's do it.
I get into roles, so I'm going to get into this one. I mean, it worked out because it's iconic.
Yeah. That image of all of his ribs. He became like the skeleton chart that they have in schools. You could identify everything.
So I think this is an interesting case of where it was unnecessary.
Well, if it was a misunderstanding, yeah, absolutely. Although, it's haunting to see him like that. It's really nuts. He looks like a corpse.
And then on the flip side, like Batman Begins, he played a very believable Bruce Wayne / Batman. Like he arguably the most believable of all time.
He probably will have some health issues in his life. So someone's getting hurt. It's himself.
It's his heart.
It's his heart.
I don't think it's good for your heart.
It can't be. There's no way that the way that he fluctuates his weight between movies, there's no way that that's okay for the human body. We weren't designed for that. Yeah.
It does appear as though prosthetics have come such a long way that it can be achieved without that yet. But I didn't know that, and I'm stubborn.
I feel like he almost chooses his movies based on how much he can transform his body. It's crazy.
I really wonder how that plays into his preparing for the role. How important is it for him to have that transformation? Can he get into a role without it? I wonder if there's something in his psyche or in his
where he has to transform.
He has to transform in order for it to be believable for him. Because you're right, he always does it, and it's bouncing. It's like yo-yoing from one to the other.
I think he should try to get as big as like Dwayne Johnson. He hasn't gotten that big yet.
His final form is Dwayne Johnson. Yeah. They couldn't get Dwayne Johnson in the MCU, so they're just going to make Christian Bale go that big.
Yeah, you could do it, right, Christian?
Okay, then probably the most famous of all time method acting, right? I would say that this Daniel Day-Lewis, he's the most famous, right?
He is. You say method acting, and he's the one that comes to mind.
Yeah, My Left Foot when he stayed in the wheelchair for the entire film shoot duration. Last of the Mohicans. Have you ever seen that film?
I haven't, no.
It's a good one.
Huh.
Yeah. He lived in a pioneer village and he built his own house with like period tools.
Where do you find a pioneer village?
You know those like you go on those school trips?
Like a Renaissance? No, not a Renaissance. I mean like a reenactment kind of thing?
You go to those school trips, those little villages that like they have actors and...
He lived with those actors? Those like high school theater actors?
Yeah.
Daniel Day-Lewis strolls in, builds a house.
Back on the bus. Daniel Day-Lewis, you stay here. Okay, and he also, which I think this is a really sick move, he brought his gun to dinner. So like in the film, he has like, you know, everybody in that time carried around these long musket rifles.
Yeah.
And he just brought his everywhere with him because like that's what they did back in the day. In this day, you know, like
he brought it to dinner.
He brought it to dinner and just like laid his gun down on the table for dinner. Well, I don't know if he put it on the table, but it's a statement. When you bring a gun to dinner, that's a statement.
Yeah, it depends who's at the dinner with you, I guess.
Yeah. The aforementioned aunt.
The little theater actors.
The aforementioned aunt. That's not allowed to come anymore.
Yeah.
This is to make sure she stays out.
Yeah.
So that to me teeters on the edge.
I agree. That feels okay. So unquestionably, great actor. The performances that he gets,
stellar,
great, so good,
almost flawless. I mean, I say almost because you know
where are the
nobody's perfect.
Nobody's perfect, but But you have to wonder how much of building a house with 17th century tools helped him do that.
To understand
Yeah.
how to live in that time. So this is a case of where like that might be too much.
Yeah, if it helps him, sure, but it seems excessive.
I would love to know what the difference in the performance would have been.
Yeah. And unfortunately, all we have is a great performance, so there's no way to argue against it.
No, but this is what we are really saying. And this is the hilarious thing about this. We're both looking at Daniel Day-Lewis, Oscar winning, and saying, nah, I don't believe you.
Nah. Not necessary. No, we're saying he would have been good without all the BS.
You're right. We are saying something nicer.
It's nice.
We're saying something nicer.
We're saying you don't need you don't need all of that, Daniel.
Believe in yourself.
Believe in yourself, Daniel Day-Lewis. You got this.
Shia LaBeouf. There's a lot here to unpack because Shia's had a very interesting career.
Yeah.
He's had a lot of ups and downs. So he talked about his acting in the film Fury. This is a movie about a tank. Have you seen this movie?
Yeah, it's a good tank movie.
It's a good tank movie. Of all the tank movies,
yeah, one of the best.
It's one of the better tank movies. Fury is the most meat I've ever had to chew on, he says. David Ayer, the director, told us right from the gate, I need you to give me everything. I feel like you can't say that to Shia LaBeouf. Well, you say give me everything, and
this provides a little context for Jared Leto.
Yep.
Same director, Suicide Squad.
Outrageous demands.
It's the kind of thing he tells his actors, give me everything.
Yeah. You don't tell psychologically unstable individuals to give you everything. Okay, so Shia LaBeouf says, so the day after I got the job, I joined the U.S. National Guard. Hang on. This is going to go a little crazier. I was baptized, accepted Christ into my heart, tattooed my surrender, and became a chaplain's assistant to Captain Yates for the 41st Infantry. I spent a month living on a forward operating base. Then I linked up with my cast and went to Fort Irwin. I pulled my tooth out, knifed my face up, and spent days watching horses die. I didn't bathe for 4 months. I met some tankers who told me that was just the way it was out there. Some guys had the same pair of socks on for 3 years.
So I don't think that's going too far. I think that
you literally inflicted that on yourself because that's how much you wanted to commit to this role.
That's one of the smaller things. I mean, really? I know it seems wild because it's a scar, but you get a lot of scars doing these things, more so emotionally than the physical stuff. That's really the smallest part of the job. That's just vanity stuff.
No, that's okay. Insane.
But it's fully living up to what David Ayer asked for.
Yeah, that's true. Ayer.
What David Ayer asked for was everything, and Shia gave him everything.
He did.
He's a man of the cloth now. He's a soldier. He's a veteran. He's a man of the cloth, and he knifed his own face up. How many people knife their own face up?
He's like a side character in that movie. He's not even the main guy.
He's not even the main tank guy.
He's like a background guy who's like, bruh.
I'll say this. He did it well. He played crazy very well.
Yeah.
I believed that he was the guy that he was, but you're right. He was not the center of attention. I would say, Bradley Pitts, he was the main character. And I even think of what's his name, who played Punisher?
John Bernthal.
John Bernthal, to me, was more of a main character in that film than Shia LaBeouf was.
And you know what? I believed those guys just as much as I believed Shia. So if that's what it took him to get there, maybe you're not in the right profession. A great job and everything, but like if you need to go through to those lengths to give a kind of performance that your other castmates did not pull their own teeth out and they probably showered, I imagine. Like, that's too much. That's obviously too much. You should not do that.
Don't do that. This isn't believe in yourself, Shia. This is Shia. Take it back. Take it back a couple of steps.
But I like Shia. I like how crazy Shia is. I'm actually a fan. I do, and that's.
But you know what? I'm a fan as well, and I think I'm a fan because of how self-aware he became after this.
Right.
That only happened, a decent amount after. Before this, it was Transformers, where he's a very different guy.
Yeah.
And after this, he really he went to a place.
Yeah.
Like I think he went to prison for a bit.
That I don't know, but that doesn't surprise me.
Let me just check real quick. Timeline real. Fury, the film, is 2014.
He was in jail for public drunkenness.
So he went to jail, not prison. He went to jail. He definitely like went to a place, and it was almost after this that he became the meme that everybody started to enjoy on the internet.
Yeah.
And he had this moment of like becoming almost like a real world reverse method, where he then actually started to play himself and his real family experience in the new film Honey Boy, where he plays his father. And it's like his story, essentially.
Yeah, and I think he's accessed a level of crazy that is very entertaining to watch. And he's I feel like he's been in, in the Hollywood blockbuster machine, and he was a kid actor. On Fury, he dove into like way over the top method, and now he's kind of like he's just kind of exploring different paths and different ways of making art, I guess.
I think you nailed it with by saying it's art. He's fully embraced being an artist.
Yeah.
And he almost doesn't care how that comes out now.
Mm-hmm.
He just wants to express himself in one way or another. And it's almost like he doesn't have to go to these extreme lengths anymore because he believes it so much.
Yeah, it's interesting. He's out there exploring. It's
come a long way from becoming a chaplain in the National Guard and ripping his teeth and cutting his face.
Yeah.
So we can agree, Fury, bad example. You went too far. It wasn't even worth it.
Yeah.
There was no awards to be had. It was a good tank movie, and you played a good part, Shia. But at the end of the day, it probably wasn't worth what you put into it. You didn't get that back. Clearly. He took a hiatus from acting and went to jail for a little bit. All right, we got to talk about Nicolas Cage. I don't know why, but his name is on the list, so we have to talk about him.
All right.
I'm going to guess that it's because of Leaving Las Vegas. Have you ever seen that film?
No.
So he plays an alcoholic in the film, and he did it. And he fully got into that life.
He drank a lot and
became a bad person. And the performance it is a terrific performance. It's a terrific film. It's really raw, and it makes you feel uncomfortable because he's so believable as this drunk. It's like Mr. Leahy in Trailer Park Boys. You ever watch Trailer Park Boys?
I'm familiar, but
the best on-screen drunk ever. Nicolas Cage channeled his inner Leahy. Anyways, here's a quote from Nicolas Cage. Sometimes people think I'm wearing a wig when I'm not wearing a wig. And then sometimes they think I'm not wearing a wig when I am wearing a wig.
That's deep.
I mean, I have absolutely no idea why.
Sir, this is a Wendy's.
So he's also about pulling his teeth out.
Maybe that's where Shia got it.
He yanked one out for the film Birdie.
A tooth.
Yeah. And then he...
Sorry.
Uh-oh. A tooth? Yep. A tooth.
Want to be clear.
Okay, so where were we? Nick Cage. Nick Cage, he pulled out a tooth for the film Birdie.
I feel like that's going to be a whole new school of acting, is teeth pulling school.
Okay, here's how you grip the tooth. You grip it with a pair of pliers just like this. Okay, you get to count to 3. 1, 2, 3, you twist and pull. It's a twist and pull.
It's just this dentist from
No, this
Brooklyn.
Is bad. He's not even a dentist.
Where's he from?
He's he's a veterinarian who lost his license.
From Boston? From Brooklyn?
Brooklyn, yeah.
He's from Brooklyn?
Brooklyn, yeah.
And he's...
You go ahead, you give it a twist, and you pull.
Yeah.
And then once the tooth comes, you let that blood flow. You don't try and pack any gauze in there.
Don't listen to this Stanislavski guy. You listen to me.
Yeah. And so then after he ripped his tooth out, he wore bandages on his face for 5 weeks. And he said, when I took the bandages off, my skin was all infected because of acne and ingrown hairs.
I mean, yeah, great, cool. That's... How do you react to that?
I like my teeth.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to pull one out.
It's a tooth.
I wouldn't want to pull a tooth out for a role ever,
And why? Why take the bandage off?
Just take it off and have a healthy face.
The thing is, every time somebody wins an Oscar for this kind of behavior, it legitimizes it all so much.
Yes.
So you hear a story like that, but the end of that story is that he was celebrated and won an Academy Award.
Exactly. And then inspired people to either outdo that,
yeah,
or to try that much harder, push the envelope. I'm saying the same thing in different ways, but essentially put themselves in more danger, hurt themselves more, hurt their castmates more, hurt the crew of the film more, their families and the people that are experiencing this with them. They have to go through it too, you know?
Yeah.
So that's the question that we ultimately have to answer going forward is, what happens to method acting now? Where does it go? Have we seen the best of it? Is the best of it behind us? And are we now returning to sort of an era of more classical acting where the performances stand on their own, aside from all the crazy zany antics? And this wouldn't be the first time that, you know, a certain style or trend in cinema has started to dwindle. Improv films, or just improv in general, improv comedy.
Yeah, where they just have people ad-lib lines over and over and over again, and then they pick one for the final cut. That does seem to be happening less and less because people know now. People can recognize, since like Anchorman and Superbad and stuff came out, like that was fun to watch. It was like, oh yeah, that actor clearly came up with that. But over the years, it's kind of like you can tell when it became more and more deliberate and became, all right, they clearly had the improv person try some lines, and
then YouTube becomes riddled with all the deleted scenes or the cut
outtakes
that didn't make it, and every last one of them is more outrageous than the last, and that kind of became oversaturated as well, and it just became
actors trying to one-up each other with the random thing that they could come up with on the spot. I think people are tired of that, and you don't see that so much anymore. I kind of hope it's going to be that way with these over-the-top method acting stories. I don't think the big weight gain transformations are going to go away.
No,
although they can do that with like digital effects now, like how Tony Stark was thin in Endgame at the beginning. But it's always going to be kind of cool to see someone like Kumail Nanjiani suddenly ripped from Marvel. It's like, oh, okay,
that broke everyone's
That's
brains.
Crazy.
Yeah, and I guess there is always sort of like the what you just said about like CGI and just green screens in general and how digital things are becoming. Will they really have to go that far? And it'll be interesting to see how these method actors adapt to that sort of this new situation, this new reality of where if the directors or the studios don't like what they have, they can ultimately change whatever they want at any point, and how
That's
you
true.
look and how you sound, you know, all these deep fakes and the way they change people's voices and stuff. Ultimately, we're going to get to a place where nothing is set in stone.
Yeah, a performance, even like if Daniel Day-Lewis cuts his left foot off to play my right foot.
Coming soon to a theaters near.
David Ayer can swoop in editing and change his expression digitally. Like pull his tooth out.
Punch himself in the face repeatedly.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see how that all comes together.
But I would like to see method acting in that over-the-top sense, and that Jared Leto sending gross gifts.
Yeah,
I'd be happy to see those stories stop coming out.
Yeah,
that'd be great.
I mean, they're good for a quick laugh, but then once you really take in the severity of them and what that must have been like for the people that were going through it, that's not a good time.
Hundreds of people working on movie sets are subjected to the BS of these actors.
Yeah.
Think of the crew.
And as we learned in the case of that Ryan Gosling and Michelle Williams, think of the kids, think of the children.
Think of the children.
My goodness.
If
we learned anything today, it's that there were crimes committed.
Yeah.
Someone should go to jail for that one.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose that's where we'll bring an end to this.
I think we cracked it.
I think we cracked the case.
Someone's got to go to jail.
Yep.
Daniel Day-Lewis, believe in yourself, man.
Just believe in yourself. We hope you've enjoyed this first inaugural episode of the Screen Rant podcast. Thank you so much for listening. And if you haven't already, click all the buttons that you're supposed to click that do the things for you to know when we have another one, because we will do more of these one of these days. You want to say anything to say goodbye?
No, thank you.
Nice way to end it.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
See you in the next one.